Hello everyone, welcome to the news desk here on day 2 at Pro Tour Kaladesh. Rich Hagan alongside Pro Tour Hall of Famer Louis Scott-Vargas, fresh from not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, but 6 noxious gear hulks.
That was one of the most memorable Lunar matches I've ever seen. Shota Yasuoka just went noxious gear hulk, Sahili's artistry, make 2 more noxious gear hulks twice.
Yeah, so it turns out a vaguely fair green-white deck splashing for Whirl of Virtuoso, not quite going to handle that. Yeah. So there we are. So maybe Shota Yasuoka is en route for a 3-0. But we talk about how hard it is to get to a top 8, Luis. He's the last undefeated player. He's 9-0, but he still needs to go at least 3-3 over the next 6 of the toughest rounds in Magic before then in the last round he can breathe a sigh of relief and go, yes, I'm in now, I'm playing for one of the top seeds. Yeah. So it's not, no one can yet have a losing record from here to the end of the tournament. Nope. And he's the last surviving perfect record. It really is a summit every time here at the Pro Tour. So what about the players who gave themselves a great handicap start by winning their draft pods 3-0? We've found 10 lists across all 10 color pairs. Why don't we start off with French Hall of Famer Rafael Levy, and he was playing black-green. So, Luis, what's going on with this deck?
So the black-green deck kind of has 2 main themes, +1/+1 counters and energy. And you see that Raf has a lot of cards that play into those themes very nicely. Multiform Wonder and Riparian Tiger, more on the energy side, whereas you have cards like Thriving Rats and Thriving Rhino, which dovetail nicely and slot into both halves. Fabrication module, every time you get an energy, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on a creature. And you can see how well that works with something like Thriving Rats or Thriving Rhino.
What's your sense? He's got 2, the only creature he's got 2 of, Thriving Rats, and then Mullfist Squad. What do you make of that as a card?
Mullfist Squad in this deck, it's more of a value card. It's either a 3/1 Intimidate or a 4/2 Intimidate, and if it's a 3/1, it comes with a 1/1 Servo, which gives you a blocker, gives you an artifact for something like Doomed Operative, which becomes a 3/2 Death Touch if you have an artifact. So this is a pretty high synergy deck. It's a little bit on the aggressive side, despite that, with Foundry Inspector and Renegade Freighter, a couple combat tricks like Rush of Vitality and Ornamental cards.
I mean, this is Rafael Levy, so basically his idea of blue-white control is 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop,
right,
and then start counterspelling things. So yeah, he is an aggressive player for sure. 17 land, that is worth watching out for because it is a definite theme of all these 3-0 decks. There'd been a lot of discussion coming in that some people were saying, oh yeah, I want to sink in 18. Some of the aggressive decks were playing 14 and 15. Pretty much everything in sight at 3-0. Lock solid, 9-8, 17 land, somewhere there. But we'll see that as we progress through. I'm going to stick with black and turn to red next, our next color pair. This is another Hall of Famer. It's Jelge Vigasma of the Netherlands. So black-red, you would hope, is probably being aggressive. Is it here, Luis?
Definitely, and you see Jelge is, using his deckless space more efficiently. He's got not very many different cards in his deck, using up much less of the screen, because he has 4 copies of Salivating Gremlins. He's got 2 copies of Reckless Fireweaver, 2 copies of Subtle Strike, and 2 copies of Whirler Maker. The important synergies there are Salivating Gremlins and Reckless Fireweaver. Both of them trigger whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control. And then 2 Whirler Makers. Every turn, Jelge can sit there and just make a token with Whirler Maker, make his Gremlins a 4/3, ping your opponent for 1 with Reckless Fireweaver, and just attack the opponent's life total that way.
And also, if he ever gets as far as Marionette Master, that's just absurd as you go bang, 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 3, Reckless Fireweaver. Yeah, I mean, you don't even need to pick up the strings, you just need to watch the carnage.
Yeah.
Just a fantastic card there. So no surprise that Jelge Vigasma went 3-0 with his black-red deck. So we'll stay with red. Now we'll pair up with green, which is widely regarded as one of the strongest colors in the format. I'm going to take you to Denmark, the great Dane himself, Martin Mull, part of the Dane Blast crowd that won the World Magic Cup. 3-0 with green-red. Luis.
And so far we've seen three different aggressive decks, because I would also classify this as an aggressive deck. And as we're looking through the red and black color pairs, that doesn't really surprise me. Martin is somewhat on the energy plan, but with a couple copies of Riparian Tiger, but more than that, just attacking the opponent. Spireside Infiltrator, Thriving Grubs, a couple combat tricks, some removal in Chandra's Pyrohelix.
Now, I am surprised. On the right of the screen, you see 1 Renegade Freighter, fine, prime common pick for sure. But in the middle column, both Bomat Bazaar Barge and then Aradara Express. I did not expect to see Aradara Express really widely played.
It's more of a sideboard card in this format, but if you take a look at Martin's deck list, he's got 2 Riparian Tigers, he's got Wayward Giant, he even has Salivating Gremlins, and those cards are all capable of crewing the Express by themselves because of Crew 4.
Right, okay, so it's a reasonable fit here.
Right.
Okay, so that was Martin Muller. Next up, it's another Hall of Famer, it's Ben Stark. He was playing green, and he was pairing it with blue. This time, he does actually go down to 16 land, 8 forest, 7 island, and 1 ether hub. What else do we see here, Luis?
So we're definitely off the aggressive strategy. This is a controlling deck. I actually talked to Ben. He's on my team, and
right.
He said this is the best deck he's ever drafted at a Pro Tour. This is a blue-green energy control deck with Confiscation Coup, Animation Module, Rashmi Eternity's Crafter, so 3 bombs just to start out with.
Right.
But also incredibly consistent. 2 Ether Theorist, Glimmer of Genius, multiple copies of High Spire Artisan to defend himself. He's just Long Tusk Cub, a premium uncommon, 2 Minister of Inquiries, which is a great way to close out the game. And every game, I actually got to catch some of Ben's games too, and every game he just played a bunch of energy creatures, used the energy effectively, his opponents could never attack him, and he just easily won the game.
Yeah, he tweeted a loving picture of this deck and said, yep, I think this may be the best Pro Tour draft deck I've ever had. So, can't say fairer than that. If you want to be green-blue, you can do a lot worse than what Ben Stark came up with. All right, let's stay with green again. And someone that Ben Stark knows very well, it's the shorts-wearing Matt Nass, erstwhile tennis professional, and sometime Magic the Gathering professional. Here he is with his 3-0 green-white deck.
And this is back on the aggressive side, kind of like a green-white deck. It doesn't go wide. We've seen some green-white decks go wide with multiple copies of Inspired Charge, for example. This is just more of like, play a good curve of creatures, play cards like Angel of Invention, Arborback Stomper, Virtuous Gearhulk, these just incredibly high-impact 5 and 6 drops, and just run the opponent over.
Right, and the fact that you can, like you say, curve your way, you've got 3 Aviary Mechanic if you need them early, you can burn one of those just as a straight 2/2 for 2. Herald of the Fair then pumps up the turn it arrives, it's a 3/2 already. You get the Seed Sculptor to put a counter on, and then by the time you get to Propeller Pioneer, and then those, like you say, your big hitters, and obviously Verdurous Gearhulk is just nuts, turns out. Do people lose when they play Verdurous Gearhulk? I'm not sure I've beaten one yet.
In my impression, no one loses when they play any Gearhulk, so.
Oh no, that's not true. You play Combustible Gearhulk, they go, sure, I'll take some damage. They take 2 damage and laugh at you.
To be fair, the one time I ever cast the card, I did 0 damage. I flipped 3 lands.
There we go.
So.
There we go. No, that one has a little health warning attached. All right, so that was Matt Nass. Let's stay in the Hall of Fame. Let's see what Eric Froelich came up with. Well, he was playing red-white. Now, was this super aggressive, Luis?
It is on the aggressive side, but having Cataclysmic Gearhulk and Depala Pilot Exemplar means that Eric definitely had the capability of playing a long game. But any deck with 1-drops like Ruinous Gremlin and
the Inventor's Apprentice is there as well.
Right, and Built to Smash, a combat check to push things through. Renegade Freighter. Renegade Freighter is a good litmus test. If you see a Renegade Freighter in someone's deck, they're interested in attacking. You know, we saw Shota Yasuoka play a very controlling game, and he would not put that card in his deck, whereas it's one of the better cards in Eric's deck here.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting as you see cards like Revoked Privileges and Sky Whaler's Shot. Those are cards that increasingly, as the Magic Online community works out what's going on in Kaladesh, you either open them or you don't see them. They're just gone. You know, I go multiple drafts and just, oh, Revoked Privileges. I remember that card once. It's very much a card that fits perfectly in Eric Froelich's 3-0 deck. Next up, Reed Duke. He was blue-black yesterday to go 3-0. And here's his list. Now, we've cheated a little bit because there are a couple of planes there. And it's worth noting, if we go Island, Plains, Swamp, that sounds like Esper to me. And that's what Reed's playing today as well.
Yeah, he's got a deck he likes, apparently.
He does. I've got to say, I can't wait to bring him in here because I'm hoping after this round we'll get him to the news desk and we'll work through his deck from today. But this deck, meanwhile, 3-0 with blue-black.
And this, much like the deck he has today, is very controlling. He's actually got Sahili's Artistry as well, and it's, you know, Cloud Blazer, multiple copies of Consulate Skygate, a card that is, you know, purely a defensive mechanism. And what Reed's trying to do is just gain control of the game, use underhanded designs, tidy conclusion, and stop your opponent's threats and eventually grind out the game with good value cards like Oval Chase Daredevil.
Okay, blue-red is next. It's Matt Costa who went 3-0 with this one. An archetype that's not necessarily high on the popularity list, but there's a Whirl of Virtuoso in this one.
As soon as the blue-red deck pops up, it's like, where's the Whirl of Virtuoso? The answer is right there next to the Era of Innovation, and that is what Matt Costa used to go 3-0 with this deck.
Yeah, and double multi-form wonder. That must be nice.
Certainly no
slouch.
slouch.
Yeah, so that's Matt Costa. We'll stay with C, and this is not Costa, but Cox. Pat Cox here, 3-0 with one of the enemy color pairs. This is white-black. And the first thing I see are the threes. 3 tidy conclusion that really make things dead, and 3 really inspired charge.
Pat has 5 inspired charges over his 2 draft decks, I believe. And
Okay.
He's a very big fan of the Fabricate plus inspired charge plan, and this deck really exemplifies that. He's just got a lot of ways to go wide, a bunch of inspired charges, and just going to attack his opponent with a bunch of tokens.
I mean, it works, right? I mean,
did,
inspired
3-0'd.
charge does an awful lot of extra damage, and there aren't a lot of ways to go. At instant speed, I'm going to decimate your board. And finally then, Shota Yasuoka with white-blue. Let's take a look at his 3-0 deck from yesterday. Is it as good as today's, Luis?
It is not,
Shocker.
because he doesn't have Noxious Gearhulk and Saheeli's Artistry, but it is still a very good kind of controlling white-blue deck. Again, multiple copies of Consulate Skygate and a Cloud Blazer, trying to win the game off of Gear Seeker Serpents and Assorted Flyers.
All right, so there you have it, right the way from white-blue all the way around the color wheel. 10. It's time for the next round here at Pro Tour Kaladesh.